Good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for stopping by for a check of your forecast. Hope everyone's had a wonderful afternoon. Enjoyed the day so far. It is December 10th, year of our Lord 2025. We're not quite to 4 p.m. here in the Texas Panhandle or in the Central Time Zone, but we're basically done with the day, watching that sun get kind of low on the horizon, and we will have a fairly warm day to talk about for tomorrow. Record high is going to be difficult to achieve, not impossible though, and that's what we'll be focused on in the short term. And then we'll be looking ahead at another pretty good front for the weekend, as well as our long term outlook, which has something that we've kind of focused on over the last few days anyway. But we will kind of recap that and just reinforce that thought that will probably stay quiet in regards to precipitation chances through the middle of December. But looking outside from that sky cam there in Follett, up in the northeast panhandle, you can see that's that Pantex camera. Good view there, looking at the sun setting over on the western horizon. For the most part, it is a lot of sunshine. There are a few high clouds still out there, mostly that cirrus cloud deck, which is way up in the sky. Overall, though, very quiet conditions. It's just seasonal today. We're at 53 here in Amarillo, 57 down in Childress, 53 in Boise City. Winds pretty calm, around 0 to 10 miles an hour for most of us. A little bit breezier as you get towards Union and Cimarron County, but most of us not dealing with much of a wind this afternoon. Here's our overnight lows for tonight. We'll tumble down to the 30s. Everyone should stay above freezing by tomorrow morning, and then we'll have a hot Thursday for December standards. We're going to climb well into the 60s. It's very possible most of us get into the 70s tomorrow afternoon, so it's going to be unseasonably warm. Here's your highs for tomorrow: 72 in Amarillo, 71 for Clovis, 73 in Childress, upper 60s in a couple of places, but I think a lot more of us are going to get into the 70s rather than the upper 60s. So we'll go ahead and take a quick look at some of our record high temperatures that we have for tomorrow. It's not going to be a widespread theme, but it is something that we'll have to watch. Maybe a few of us hitting a daily record high temperature. So here's just a list of some of those climate sites around the region. Amarillo still forecast to climb to 72. I think it's out of reach for us to tie that record high of 80 degrees set back in 1939. Borger, pretty far away from that record high. You're going to have to get up to 75. Dalhart's going to have to get to 74. But areas further south, like Childress and Clovis, particularly those two areas, we do have highlighted because your forecast high is within a degree of the daily record. So if we're going to see some of those climate sites tied or broken for the record for the day, those may be two of those sites that we'll have to watch more closely, but it's not going to be a guarantee that we have record-setting temperatures out there. Let's go ahead and take a look at your computer model for the next 2 days. We will have that warm day tomorrow. Westerly southwest winds going to keep us pretty warm. And then we have that next cold front that pushes across the area Friday morning. That's going to keep us, again, pretty seasonal for Friday afternoon. And that's how the next 4 days play out. We just get this, warm day followed up by a more seasonal day behind the front, another warm day on Saturday, followed up behind another big front over the weekend, which again is what we're kind of deeming as our next weather maker. That front on Saturday night looks like it's going to be a much stronger one than the one we'll see on Friday morning. It's very possible we have highs only in the 40s behind that frontal boundary this weekend for Sunday afternoon. So that's going to be the one to focus on for at least a bigger drop in those temperatures. Now, getting out into the longer range, it's not going to be a common thing for us to be below normal for those temperatures. In fact, that ridge of high pressure really going to dominate the forecast. We get a lot of warmth starting to pull back up into the continental U.S. This is, again, the 6 to 10 day outlook between the 16th and the 21st. Very high odds that will be above average. There's a lot of ensembles suggesting that will be in the 60s and 70s for high temperatures in the afternoons, and maybe even in the 30s and 40s for the for the overnight period. And this continues probably through about Christmas Day. There is some thoughts that we might see a big push of colder air before we finish off 2025. Some of the more aggressive models have that bigger front coming in around Christmas Day. Some of those that are a little bit slower and more conservative on the cold air have it kind of bottled up until that last few days of December before we see maybe a bigger change in the overall weather pattern. But from a broad view, temperatures are going to run above average for the next probably 2 weeks. And with the northwest flow pattern that we're stuck in, we're not really expecting any moisture anytime soon either. There is a very weak disturbance on Tuesday that will probably swing to our north. I would venture to believe we end up in the dry slot of that storm system. It's not a very strong one, even though there is a localized area of low pressure kind of embedded in the ridge of high pressure. It just doesn't look like there's any moisture to work with. It certainly does not look like there's any cold air to work with if you're a snow lover. So maybe some clouds rolling in on Tuesday next week, but we don't think it's going to impact those temperatures much, if any. But again, we will see maybe a northerly wind shift on Wednesday with that next quote unquote front coming through. But I'd get used to the sunshine, get used to some of the warmer weather in the near term here for the next week or two. There is going to be some cooler weather this weekend, much colder weather, especially as you get up into the Great Lakes area. I mean, we're getting a glance blow from it. You can see 49 there for that temperature on Sunday, but we're definitely not going to be in the heart of that cold air. And it looks like we will definitely try and surge back up into above average temperature territory for the middle part of the month. Again, it does look like that might change by the Christmas time frame, but again, that's 2 weeks out, and so we don't want to jump to conclusions this far out in advance because things obviously change on a day-to-day basis. But ensembles do suggest that we may start to see the PNA pattern, that Pacific North American oscillation, where we're talking about the trough location across the lower 48, currently favoring the East Coast. Maybe by December 25th through January 1st, it starts to shift towards a more negative phase, which would maybe allow for at least more zonal flow for the winds, but potentially even more southwesterly flow rather than northwest flow for us. And if that were to happen, that would be maybe a more active window for us if we're thinking about maybe some precipitation chances, higher windy days, things like that. Those usually tend to be more active patterns, especially in the winter time. That's all I've got for you guys this afternoon. Thanks so much for stopping by. Don't forget to hit that like button. Enjoy the rest of your evening.